All right, so Chapter 4, Lesson 5 is add and subtract mixed numbers. Okay, so here it says junior and adult hockey sticks are shown. And we want to know how much longer the adult hockey stick is from the junior's hockey stick. So, in order to do that, we're going to do this subtraction problem. So we're going to subtract 4 and 5/6 minus 3 and 2/3. Okay? So here we can subtract the whole number parts, just like we did in the previous lesson. We can subtract the whole number parts, and then we can subtract the fraction part. Here we have unlike fractions, so we need to get common denominators first, right? So actually we'll change these. What we're going to do is we're going to get common denominators first. So the common denominator with 6 and 3 is 6. So we're going to multiply times 2 here and times 2 there. So when I rewrite this, we're going to have 4 and 5/6 minus 3 and 4/6. So now we can subtract the whole number parts. So we're going to have 4 minus 3, which is equal to 1. And then we're going to subtract the fraction part. So that's 5/6 minus 4/6, which is equal to 1/6. So we have 1 and 1/6 feet longer for the adult hockey stick. So we are going to add and subtract mixed numbers. It says here to add or subtract mixed numbers, first add or subtract the fractions. If necessary, we want to rename them using the least common denominator. Then add or subtract the whole numbers and simplify if necessary. So we'll do just like we did in the warm-up. We'll get common denominators, we'll add the whole numbers, and then we'll add the fractional parts. And then we'll put those together. So in the examples, example 1 and 2, we have 7 and 4/9 plus 10 and 2/9. So here, once again, we're going to add the whole number parts. So 7 plus 10 is 17. And then we're going to add the fractional parts. So 4/9 plus 2/9 is 6/9. And then, of course, here, the 6/9 you can simplify by dividing the numerator and the denominator by 3. Right? And we end up with 17 and 2/3. For example 2, here we're starting out with unlike fractions. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get common denominators. The common denominator with 6 and 3 is 6, so we multiply the numerator and denominator by 2. Then we subtract the whole number parts, subtract the fractional parts, and then we end up with 6 and 3/6, and we end up with 6 and 1/2. All right, so example A, problem A, we have 6 and 1/8 plus 2 and 5/8. So once again, we're going to add the whole number parts and then add the fractional parts and put them together. So we have 6 plus 2, which is equal to 8. And then we have 1/8 plus 5/8, which is equal to, perfect. And then we can see that 6/8 can simplify by dividing by 2. Very good. So when we simplify, we divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. And so we end up with 8 and 3/4. Perfect. Okay. For problem B, here we have unlike fractions. So the first thing we need to do is get common denominators. So common denominator with 5 and 10 is 10. 20 is a common denominator, but it's not the smallest common denominator, right? So with 5 and 10, the common denominator is 10, or the least common denominator is 10. So we're going to multiply the numerator and denominator by 2. So we're going to end up with 5 and 2/10 plus 2 and 3/10. So now we can add the whole number parts. So 5 plus 2 is 7. And then 2/10 plus 3/10 is 5/10. And then, of course, here we can simplify by dividing by 5. Perfect. We'll divide by 5 in the numerator and the denominator. And what are we going to end up with? Perfect. 7 and 1/2. Okay? How about 9 and 6? What are the common denominators with 9 and 6? 18. Very good. So here we're going to multiply times 2 here and times 2 there. And then for 6 to turn it to 18, we're going to multiply times 3. So we do that in the numerator and the denominator. So when we rewrite, we end up with 1 and 10/18, good, plus 4 and 3/18, perfect. And then when we add the whole number parts, we have 1 plus 4 is equal to 5, and 10/18 plus 10/18 plus 3/18 is equal to 13/18. All right, for D, once again, on all three of these, we need to get common denominators, right? So the common denominator with 5 and 10 again is what?
10.
So we're going to multiply times 2 and 2. So now we end up with 5 and 8/10 minus 1 and 3/10. So when we subtract the whole number parts, that's 5 minus 1, that's 4. And then 8/10 minus 3/10 is 5/10. And of course, dividing by 5 in the numerator and denominator, and that gives us 4 and 1/2. Got it? The common denominator with 8 and 4 is 8. So we're going to multiply times 2 here and there. So this is going to give me, when I rewrite, 13 and 7/8 minus 9 and 6/8. Good. And now we subtract the whole number parts. 13 minus 9 is 4. And then 7/8 minus 6/8 is 1/8. Good. How about letter F? Common denominator is 6. So we're going to multiply times 2 here and 2 there. Over here we're going to multiply times 3 and 3. Good. So when I rewrite, we end up with 8 and 4/6. Good. Minus 2 and 3/6. Okay, so here we have, going to subtract the whole number parts. So 8 minus 2 is 6, and 4/6 minus 3/6 is 1/6. So here's another way that you can add or subtract mixed numbers. The other way is to write them as improper fractions. Okay, so we want to now, we're going to write the mixed numbers as improper fractions. So make sure you write that down, write as improper fractions. So here, for example, we have 2 and 1/3 minus 1 and 1/3. Now, if we did it the way we were doing in the previous example, subtracting the whole numbers and subtracting the fraction parts, here I have 2 minus 1, that's going to give me 1, right? But then I have 1/3 minus 2/3. Can I subtract 1 minus 2? No, you can't. It would end up being a -1, right? So when you do that, you can't, when you have other numbers, the whole numbers involved, you can't say this is a -1. Does that make sense? So this is the reason why, because of the positives and negatives, that you're going to change them into improper fractions, okay? The other way that you had to deal with this is that you would have to borrow. Do you guys remember borrowing? Okay, so in this problem, let me just do borrowing real quick and then we'll do the improper fractions. We would have to subtract, we would have to borrow from the 2. So this would become 1, and then we would add that 1 that we borrowed to the 1/3. So 1 plus 1 and 1/3, or 3/3 plus 1/3 is 4/3. Does everybody see that? So now we have 4/3 minus 2/3, which is going to give us 2/3. You see the borrowing? Okay? Now, the way that we're going to learn today is to change them to improper fractions. So 2 and 1/3 here is equal to, that's 6 plus 1, 7/3. And over here, 1 and 2/3 is equal to 3, 4, 5, 5/3, right? So now we just have 7/3 minus 5/3, and 7 minus 5 is 2. So that's going to give us 2/3. Right. So example G, problem G, we have 7 minus 1 and 1/2. So here, you guys, I'm going to change these to improper fractions. So with the 7, all I have to do is put that over 1, right? So this is going to be 7 over 1 minus 1 and 1/2 becomes 3/2, right? Now, in order for us to subtract, we need common denominators. So with 1 and 2, of course, the common denominator is 2. So we're going to end up, when we rewrite, we have 14/2 minus 3/2. Okay? So 14/2 is equal to, 14/2 minus 3/2 is equal to?
11/2.
Very good. 11/2. And now we can change this back to a mixed number. So how many times does 2 go into 11? 5 times, with how many left over? 1. So this is going to be 5 and 1/2. Got it? All right. So for example H, we have 5 and 3/8 minus 4 and 11/12. With 8 and 12, what's the common denominator? Good. So 24 is a common denominator. So we're going to multiply times 3 here and 3 there. For 12, we're going to multiply times 2 in the denominator and in the numerator. So when we rewrite, we end up with 5 and 9/24 minus 4 and 11/24. Oh, I'm sorry, 22. Yeah, good catch, good catch. 22. Good catch. So 22/24. So now we can change these to improper fractions. So changing these to improper fractions, that's going to be 5 times 24, which is 120, plus 9 is 129 over 24, minus 4 times 24, that's going to give us 96, plus 22, and that's going to give us 118. And that's going to be over 24. So when we subtract 118 minus 129, we're going to get, right, very good. So this is going to be 11/24. Now, as we were doing this problem, I realized that it probably would have been easier for us to change it to an improper fraction first and then get common denominators. Okay? So if you can do that, that would be a good choice. So for example I, we have 11 and 2/5 minus 2 and 3/5. So here, we already have common denominators, so we're going to go ahead, so we don't have to borrow, we're going to change it to improper fractions. So 11 times 5 is 55, plus 2 is 57. So that's going to be 57/5 minus 2 and 3/5 is going to be 13/5. Very good. Now we can subtract. So 57 minus 13 is equal to 44. So we're going to have 44/5. Now, how many times does 5 go into 44? 8 times. With how many left over?
4.
So this is going to give us 8 and 4/5. For example 4, this is choosing an operation to solve a real-world problem. It says an urban planner is designing a skateboard park. The length of the skateboard park is 120 feet and a half feet. The length of the parking lot is 40 and 1/3 feet. What will be the length of the park and the parking lot combined? So here, combined, of course, we're going to add. Very good. So we have 120 and a half plus 40 and 1/3. We're adding those together. First thing we need to do is get common denominators, and then we can add. So 120 plus 40 is 160, and 3/6 plus 2/6 is equal to 5/6. So altogether, the length of the park and the parking lot is going to be 160 and 5/6 feet.